In December 2020, Wall Street started betting on water the same way it bets on oil prices. Not buying reservoirs, not owning pipes, but financial contracts tied to the price of water in California. The same market structure used for wheat, crude, and corn. And suddenly, water had a place on Wall Street. You turn on your tap this morning, water comes out. And in some cities, that water doesn't belong to your city anymore. It belongs to a company, sometimes a foreign one, sometimes a private equity firm, and they bought it quietly while you were living your life. Here's how it works. Your city has pipes, old pipes. Replacing them costs hundreds of millions. The city doesn't have the money, so someone shows up with a pitch. Let us buy it, we'll fix the pipes, we'll run it efficiently, and you will save money. The city says yes. The moment that deal is signed, access to water becomes tied to a profit motive. And the profit motives have their own logic. Early 2000, Cochabamba, Bolivia, a city of 800,000 people. The World Bank had been pressuring Bolivia for years. Privatize your public services or lose your loans. So in September 1999, the government auctioned off the entire city's water system. One bidder showed up, a consortium controlled by the American firm Bechtel. The deal was signed in secret. A new law was rushed through Parliament to make it legal. Then Bechtel did what private companies do. It looked at the numbers and raised rates. Overnight, water bills went up more than 50%. For the poorest families in one of South America's poorest cities, that meant choosing between water and food. Think about that. Not a choice you've ever had to make over something coming out of your tap. People took to the streets. In April 2000, the government declared martial law. The army opened fire. A 17-year-old named Hugo Daza was shot in the face while protesting. And then something rare happened. The people won. Bechtel was thrown out. The water went back to the city. But here's what didn't make the news. Bechtel then sued Bolivia for $50 million at a closed-door World Bank trade court. Compensation for the profits it expected to make from water those people couldn't afford. After 6 years of global pressure, they settled for 30 cents. You might think that's Bolivia, developing world, not your problem. But the system that failed Cochabamba didn't stay in Cochabamba. A Guardian and Consumer Reports investigation found water bills in the US rose 80% across 12 cities between 2010 and 2018. In the UK, privatized water companies were caught dumping raw sewage into rivers while paying out billions in dividends to shareholders. The pollution and the payouts happening simultaneously by the same companies. And then Wall Street entered the picture. In December 2020, the CME Group launched futures contracts on the Nasdaq Villas California Water Index. Not ownership of water, a financial instrument that lets traders bet on what water will cost. Supporters say it helps farmers and utilities hedge risk. Critics say it creates profit motive tied to shortage. Either way, the signal is clear. Water is now a financial position. According to Food and Water Watch, which analyzed 500 community water systems across the US, private companies charged 59% more than public utilities for the same service. Not because the water is better, because there are shareholders to pay. And the cities most likely to sell broke ones, the ones with crumbling infrastructure, the ones where you have the least power to push back. Now, this is where the debate gets uncomfortable, because the case for privatization isn't nothing. Public water systems can be a disaster. Corruption, decades of mismanagement, pipes not replaced since the 60s, and no federal money coming to fix them. Bechtel got into Cochabamba partly because the public system was already failing. Half the city had no running water at all. Well, cities don't sell because privatization works. They sell because they're cornered. underfunding, crumbling infrastructure, and no real alternative. But a company's obligation is to its shareholders. A city's obligation is to you. When those clash, when cutting costs mean cutting service, when raising rates mean raising profit, someone loses. Too often it's the customer, which is why between 2000 and 2015, more than 235 cities across 37 countries took their water back. Paris, Berlin, Buenos Aires, remunicipalization, a quiet global admission that the experiment failed. So here's where we are. Water is running short, climate change is accelerating that, and the financial system has quietly found a way to turn that into an asset class. According to the Public Services International Research Unit, roughly 90% of the world's water is still publicly owned, but that number is shrinking. Every time a city sells, usually in a financial crisis, usually with no real alternative, that decision is almost impossible to reverse. You didn't vote on this. A deal was signed in a room you weren't in, and now the thing you need to stay alive is increasingly shaped by financial decisions made far from the communities that depend on it. The question isn't whether water should have a price. The question is who gets to decide it.